Welcome back, everyone. My mic didn't work on this episode, so we're going to do a voiceover. So we've got a 51 Chevy four-door sedan. It hasn't run in 6 years, so we're going to take a look at it, see what we can find out. So my buddy just bought this car, and it was supposed to be bought as a runner. The guy gave up on getting it to run, so I said, just pick the car up anyway. We'll get it to run. So brought it to my place. So what we started off here is going through spark plugs, just making sure they were all gapped correctly. No real issues sticking out. There are a couple things that, as we get into the video, we'll see. But right here, we're just going through, taking out spark plug number 1. We'll check on it, see what the gap is like. Gap looked pretty good on all of these, all 1 through 6, so 216 in Chevy, 1951. From there, moved over to the leads. So the leads were pretty corroded, so I went through, wire wheeled all the leads, made sure they were a bit tighter fit on all of the spark plugs. They were all pretty good. Numbers 1 and 5 were pretty loose, so I did tighten them up quite a bit. Had a new distributor cap on it, new rotor in it. This is just cleaning out. I took a piece of sandpaper and rolled it up just to clean the insides, to get the corrosion off the insides of those spark plug leads. So then we put everything back together. I've got this video pretty edited, just with the amount of duration that we went into here, going through it. It wasn't worth turning this into a 5-hour video. So one of the things we did come across was the battery was connected as a positive ground instead of a negative ground. So I went through and opened them up because the negative post is smaller than the positive post. So with everything being different, I had to stretch open the positive on the car, so that's just all we're doing here. And then I went across and scrubbed the terminals as well. It was a new battery, but just to make sure we're getting a good connection, using the adjustable hammer there, just making sure it's seated. So with everything in place and fixed, or not fixed, but at a point where I could trial it and see where we ended up, I put it into neutral. I did have wheel stops on it, so it couldn't roll down the driveway. And tried giving it a start. Spoiler, it did not start. So then I went into the next grouping. Let's take a look here. Pretty sure I go into the cap. Disconnecting the ground. Making sure I'm not going to get any residual spark from messing with coils and plug wires there. So we glazed over that pretty quick. I did take the cap off, checked the points, and the points were open quite a bit. They were at around 60 thou. The book calls out for 16 thou. That was me trying to start the car without the ground wire on. That didn't work. So trying to crank it, seeing if we're getting any fuel pumping up into my custom fuel catch there, the Rain-X bucket. Rain-X? Whatever it is. Giving it a sniff. Really Varsol. You can see the piece of cardboard there. All I did with that piece of cardboard was when I took every wire off, I did a quick map of the wires. So I'm just going through here, checking where the points are opening. Are they opening where they're supposed to? And then rechecking with the feeler gauge that they were at 16 thou and not the 60 that they were at. This does have a vacuum advance on the distributor. So as the car is running, it will advance it based on the vacuum pull from the carburetor. You see the two lines running up. So one line is fuel supply, the other one is a vacuum down to that distributor vacuum pot. So again here, just confirming that the points are opening and closing where they're supposed to. So this was the very first day that I messed with it. It was a nice day. We'd been getting a lot of snow and rain, so this was the first nice day I got to go out. So there you can see in messing with the points were replaced already. They had a replacement screw in there. Everything on this car should be flathead, and they were set up with a Red Robertson screw in them. So someone had been in there messing with it before. Just checking the cap, making sure all the connections or contact points on it, no crap on them, no corrosion. And like I said, it was a brand new cap, so there was no problems with it. A little bit of camera engagement there. Wishing my mic was working. This was the first time that I did try using these mics. It's the mic I'm using right now, so I did figure it out after the fact. I did test it prior to, and it worked on one quick video. But it didn't seem to work for the rest of it. I did walk away from the camera, so I don't know if the reception or the distance on it had to be within a certain range. So here took the spark plug off, put it on a post, and I'm going to walk around to try and start the car to see if I'm getting a spark. And classic throughout this video, you'll see me trying to start this car without the battery connected. That's fail number 3 with the battery. I was opening the window there so I could reach the push button start. And then I come around, connect that. So try starting it, no spark. The car wasn't getting any spark at all. So I decided to go through and check. So making sure the battery's at a full voltage, it was reading 6.3. Put the wire back on. Testing the positive lead into the coil, it was reading a full 6.3 as well. contemplating my life choices right here. So back again, checking it. So this car, when the ignition is off, it's in the full left position. First click fully vertical on the key is the on position, and then the click after that is going to be your accessory position. So there was further in the video where I'm trying to get this thing to start, and I have it clicked all the way to the right, what I would have expected to be the on position. And it ended up going back with my voltmeter and checking through everything and making sure that I did have power to it, and I did not. So that was with the new coil. So what I'm doing here, I essentially diagnosed that the coil is dead. It was also wired. The positive 6 volt was feeding to the negative part, the negative terminal on the coil. So I did go through and try sparking out the coil. There was no spark on it, so ordered a new coil for it. Not sure. I think this is next day. No, it's not. I'm wearing the same clothes. I'm not dirty like that. So, same day, still testing, still trying to figure out this electrical gremlin, disconnecting, checking continuity through it, checking a bunch of things. Am I getting through the points? Am I getting power through the points? Because we've had where the points come in brand new. You get maybe a crank or two out of them, or they're faulty right out of the box. You know, it is an electronic component, so they could be faulty from day one. So the points were new, so I didn't have to file them. They made great contact. Didn't have to worry about that. So did check a couple other things. That right there is the cable that went from the negative side of the coil down to the distributor. So it was really cracked and beaten up. So I did go and make another one of those, fresh ends on it, nice thick gauge wire from a bunch of wire I had around. At first I thought that might have been my problem, was the poor wire, but we did diagnose that it was the coil itself that was garbage. So it was a 6 volt coil. 904 was the part number on the side of it. This is a 6 volt system, so making sure to match it with a 6 volt coil. Dropping the tiny little nuts that come out of the coil and the wire. So as I'm doing this, I'm just sitting in my garage right now, underneath the 57 Chevy and behind the 71 Scout. Found a quiet place in the house and just trying to watch and commentate on this thing. It would have been better to have the mics working or have the volume on just the camera. I didn't know how good the camera was going to be. I should have tested it. I'm using a DJI Action 3, and I do have it connected to a phone app where I could have gone back and checked it with the phone, but I'd done so many videos prior to that I didn't think I needed to, and I should have. It was my fault. So again, audio didn't work out. Here we are doing this, but the next ones are working out, and we'll make sure that for car show season and summer cruising that we're up and going. We did get back to the 48 this weekend. So we got some bridge work done, some sheet metal work on that. So that'll be the next video coming out. Hoping to get the Panhard bar back in it, or sorry, made for it. So it looks like something's happening here, but it's just me messing around trying to still diagnose this issue. Wasn't too happy that it kept wanting to start, but took a bit to diagnose this coil. So again, finding a spot on top of the engine to see if we're getting a spark out of these spark plugs. This is the next day, wardrobe change. So I went back out. It was a little cooler this day, but new coil. Also new carb kit. So I did take the carb apart. All new gaskets throughout. It was leaking fuel quite a bit, so did do all new gaskets. Cleaned it out. It had a bunch of crud in it from the fuel tank. I did completely drain the fuel tank as well. It held about, 15 to 20 liters of fuel in it. No, more than that. It was a 5-gallon bucket. So a lot of fuel. I pulled about 3 buckets out of it. Really brown, Varsol smelling gas. No good. So I did that off camera. It was snowing when I was doing that. And just kept undoing and doing up the plug in the bottom of the fuel tank. The 49s to 54 Chevys, it's nice because they do have a fuel drain in the middle of the fuel tank at the bottom. So just put my pan underneath of it, and then I'd fill up an oil change pan, dump it into a bucket, and then just keep doing that. I think it took about, I don't know, half an hour, 40 minutes to drain the whole thing out, trying to find places to put it. I do have it in a bunch of old oil containers, and I still have some buckets that I'm waiting to get some more containers for, just to fill them up. So there is no rat in this car, as you can see. The gentleman who had it before was looking to, I think, put a small block Chev into it. So I took the rat out, just butchered the wiring on the front of it, instead of just disconnecting it nicely off the terminal blocks that these cars have on each side. So we redid the wiring as well on the front to the headlights, horn, the ground wires that need to be redone as well. So that's just the condenser on the side of the coil bracket that you're seeing me mess with there, and then trying to get this coil into the bracket. It did fight me. It was more seemed a little bit bigger in diameter than the other one was, and I did have to squeeze it to get it bolted back on the motor. All right, so magic of editing. We've got everything back on. Put our fuel catch bucket back on. Let's see if I remember to put the ground back on the battery. Probably not, but take a shot if I didn't. A little bit of 87. Oh, we put the ground back on. We're learning. We're learning a little bit here as we go. So with a little bit of fuel in the carb, like I said, rebuilt carb, new coil on it. We got it afire. Did we? Yeah, that fired. So now I'm waiting for the fuel pump to start getting a little bit more fuel up into that catch can. Oh, no, it did not start. So it sounded like it wanted to start, but I wasn't sure. And looks like I didn't have cylinder 1 spark plug tight in there. So, oh, our volume came back on this one. So clamping it on to the post that's holding the valve cover on there. And then we're gonna go try and crank on it. So this was a weird where it hadn't started the 2 times after putting fuel down the carb, but on this attempt here, you can hear it. She wanted to go, so that was awesome. So that felt good. So put the plug back in. We'll tighten it down this time. Jay, don't worry, they're all tight. Throw the lead back on. We'll put some more go-go juice down the carb. So I switched to a water bottle here with gas in it. I was trying to keep it going as long as I could on the bottle, but I think it's having fuel pump issues or something wrong. There's a lot of stuff in the system, so I didn't fill up the float bowls, but this was a good indication that we had a runner, which was nice. So We had backwards battery, we had backwards coil, so new coil, regap the points. So we're putting the rad back in here, getting it on the driveway. So we went new upper and lower rad hoses on this as well. It ended up taking three containers of antifreeze to fill up the rad and what was left in the block. And there's the old brace that goes across the rad and the wiring that he just snipped. So there's also a bucket of bolts in the trunk that I had to go and get. Which was nice. I was glad he had a bucket full of bolts that all went into the right locations. So I was out here messing with it this morning, got it running. The issue was the keyed ignition. I had it in what I thought was the on position. What it was an accessory position with no power to the coil. So I had to run the multimeter, take the coil off. As soon as I found that out, I plugged it back in, fired right up. So got everything back together, rad's in, fluids in it, batteries in a proper hold down position, all the wiring's touched up, and we'll start it up. Runs really smooth. Like I said, it's been in storage for about 6 years, and once I got everything fixed on it, the backwards wiring on the battery, backwards wiring on the coil, new coil because that wiring fried it, set the points gap. It was at probably about 60 to 80, set it back to 16 where it was supposed to be, cleaned the plugs, cleaned the wires, rebuilt the carb, rad's back in, so all that, new upper and lower rad hoses on it because they were pretty chewed up. So runs good, just checked it, all the gears work on it, so Jay's gonna come pick it up later today and take it back to its home. So thanks for watching. If you like what I'm doing, hit the subscribe button. Thank you.